The morning started like any other morning on Earth. People went to work, children went to school, and the sun rose over cities that stretched across continents. Captain Jiho sat in his command chair aboard the UTS Horizon, drinking coffee and reading reports. His ship floated in orbit around Earth, one of 30 vessels that protected humanity's homeworld. Nothing seemed unusual. The sensors showed clear space. Communication channels hummed with routine traffic. Then everything changed. The sensors screamed warnings. Jiho's coffee cup fell from his hand as massive shapes appeared on every screen. Ships, hundreds of them. They emerged from hyperspace like nightmares materializing in daylight, their hulls dark and threatening against the stars. The smallest vessel dwarfed the horizon. The largest stretched 20 kilometers from end to end, bristling with weapons that humanity had never seen before. Jiho's training kicked in immediately. He barked orders across the bridge. Red alert. Battle stations. Shields up. Weapons ready. Around him, his crew moved with practiced efficiency, but he could see the fear in their eyes. Everyone knew what those ships meant. This was not a friendly visit. On Mars, Dr. Mina was examining soil samples when her laboratory's alarms began blaring. She looked up at the emergency broadcast filling every screen. The alien ships weren't just at Earth. They appeared simultaneously at 12 human colonies across space. Mars, New Sol, Europa, Proxima stations. Every major human settlement now had alien warships in orbit. This was coordinated. This was planned. This was an invasion. Mina's hand shook as she sealed her samples. She had spent 15 years studying theoretical alien life, writing papers about what humanity might find in the stars. She imagined peaceful contact, scientific exchange, mutual curiosity. The ships on her screen looked nothing like her dreams. They looked like death. At Earth's military headquarters, General Daeho stood before a wall of displays showing every human settlement. Each display showed the same thing: alien warships. He had fought in the Proxima conflict, commanded troops in the asteroid wars, survived battles that killed thousands. But this was different. This enemy arrived with overwhelming force. The general's jaw tightened as he calculated the odds. Humanity had perhaps 300 military ships scattered across 50 star systems. The aliens brought over 2,000 vessels to just 13 locations. The communication came exactly 1 hour after the aliens arrived. Every screen, every radio, every communication device across human space suddenly displayed the same image. A creature stood before them, tall and angular, with 4 arms and eyes that reflected no warmth. Its skin looked like polished stone, gray and hard. When it spoke, translation software converted its language into something humans could understand. The creature identified itself as War Master Kryn of the Vrykon Empire. It said the Vrykon had watched humanity for decades, studying their transmissions and technology. It said humanity was primitive but might serve useful purposes. It offered humanity a choice: surrender within 48 hours and become workers for the Empire, or resist and face complete annihilation. The War Master explained that 43 species had faced this same choice. All 43 chose surrender. Resistance was futile. The Vrykon Empire had conquered civilizations far older and more advanced than humanity. Ambassador Hyun watched the broadcast from her office at the United Terran Assembly. She was humanity's chief diplomat, skilled at negotiation and finding common ground. She immediately tried to open communication channels with the Vrykon, requesting dialogue and discussion. Her messages went unanswered. She tried again, and again. The aliens sent only silence. They had delivered their ultimatum. They expected obedience. The assembly convened an emergency session. Representatives from every human world gathered virtually, their faces grim. Some argued for surrender. What choice did they have against such overwhelming power? Others demanded resistance. Better to die free than live as slaves. The debate raged for hours while the clock counted down their 48-hour deadline. General Daeho addressed the assembly with simple facts. Humanity's weapons were inferior, their shields weaker, their ships slower. In any direct confrontation, humans would lose badly. But Daeho had studied military history extensively. He knew that superior technology didn't guarantee victory. Smaller forces had defeated larger ones throughout human history, by using unconventional tactics, by fighting smart instead of fighting fair. Captain Jiho moved his ship into defensive formation around Earth alongside other Terran vessels. He stared at the alien warships on his screen, counting them, analyzing their formations. They moved with perfect coordination, maintaining precise distances and patterns. Jiho had commanded warships for 15 years. He recognized rigid military doctrine when he saw it. The Vrakan fought by rules, by established procedures. That might be a weakness. Dr. Mina worked frantically, analyzing every scrap of data about the Vrakan ships. Their energy signatures, their hull composition, their communication frequencies. Somewhere in that data might be a vulnerability. Something humanity could exploit. She barely slept, surviving on coffee and determination. Other scientists across human space did the same, sharing information, looking for any advantage. The 48 hours passed. Humanity's answer came not from the assembly but from every human world simultaneously. No, they would not surrender. They would not become slaves. If the Vrakan wanted Earth and its colonies, they would have to take them by force. The Vrakan response was immediate and brutal. They targeted Titan, a small mining colony with 3,000 inhabitants. The warships fired once, just once. Energy beams lanced down from orbit and Titan's surface turned to molten glass. 3,000 people died in seconds. The message was clear: submit or die. Across human space, people watched the footage of Titan's destruction. They saw their fellow humans erased from existence. Some felt terror. Some felt despair. But many felt something else entirely: rage. The Vrakan expected fear to break human resistance. They didn't understand that humanity had survived ice ages and plagues, world wars, and near extinctions. Throughout their history, humans had faced annihilation and refused to accept it. General Daiho issued orders to every military commander: make them bleed. Humanity would lose this war if it became a contest of firepower, so they wouldn't fight that war. They would fight their war. They would use tactics the Vrakan had never encountered, weapons the aliens couldn't predict, and a willingness to sacrifice that no conquered species had shown before. Captain Jiho watched the alien fleet begin its advance toward Earth. Behind him, his crew waited for orders. Ahead of him, enemy ships that could destroy his vessel with a single shot moved into attack formation. Jiho thought about Titan, about the 3,000 dead, about humanity facing extinction. Then he thought about something his grandfather once told him: the only way to lose is to give up. He opened a channel to all Terran ships. His voice was calm and steady. All vessels, prepare for combat. We're going to show these aliens what happens when they threaten humanity. Attack pattern Delta. Hit them fast, hit them hard, and make them remember this day. The battle for Earth's survival was about to begin. The Vrakan expected easy victory. They had crushed 43 species. Humanity would be number 44. But the Vrakan had never fought humans before. They didn't know that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology or their numbers. It was their absolute refusal to accept defeat no matter the odds. The aliens came to conquer. They were about to learn that conquering humanity meant destroying every last human. And even in death, humanity would make them pay an unbearable price. The first wave of Vrakan warships moved toward Earth like a wall of death. Captain Jiho's battle group of 30 ships looked pathetically small against 200 alien vessels. The tactical display on his screen showed the overwhelming odds in red. His weapons officer reported that their missiles would barely scratch Vrakan shields. His engineer said enemy energy beams could cut through their armor like paper. Jiho gave the order to attack anyway. Human ships scattered in all directions, abandoning traditional formation. The Vrakan responded predictably, dividing their fleet into precise groups to pursue each target. Jiho smiled grimly. The aliens fought like they had always fought, with overwhelming force and perfect coordination. They probably defeated their previous 43 enemies the same way. But humanity wouldn't fight that battle. The Horizon dove toward Earth's atmosphere, using the planet's gravity to slingshot around at impossible speed. 3 Vrakan ships followed. Jiho led them straight into a cloud of debris from an old satellite network. The Vrakan shields easily deflected the small impacts, but the debris obscured their sensors. When they emerged, the Horizon wasn't running anymore. It was waiting, all weapons aimed at the lead Vrakan ship's bridge. Jiho fired everything at once. The concentrated barrage overloaded the alien shields for just 3 seconds. That was enough. The Vrakan ship's bridge exploded. First blood. One alien ship down, 200 to go. Across the battlefield, other human commanders used similar tactics. They didn't try to overpower Vrecon shields. They tricked them. They ambushed them. They used the environment as a weapon. An asteroid field became a maze where human ships, smaller and more agile, could hide and strike. A damaged freighter became a bomb when its reactor overloaded next to 3 Vrecon vessels. Nothing was off limits. Nothing was too desperate. But the cost was terrible. Within the first hour, 18 human ships were destroyed. Jiho watched good people die. Vessels he'd served alongside turned to expanding clouds of debris. The Vrecon adapted slowly, but they were adapting. Their superior technology and numbers would eventually win. Humanity needed more than tactics. They needed weapons the aliens couldn't counter. General Daiho stood in the military command center, coordinating the defense across 13 human worlds. Every report brought bad news. Humanity was losing ships faster than they could afford. He made a difficult decision. Stop trying to win battles and start making the enemy hurt. He issued new orders to every commander. Don't engage in fair fights. Target supply ships. Hit their logistics. Make this invasion so costly that the Vrecon would question whether humanity was worth conquering. On Mars, engineer Taiyang worked in a converted factory that now produced weapons. He was young, barely 30, but possessed a brilliant mind for destructive innovation. His latest creation sat on the workbench, a computer virus designed specifically for Vrecon systems. The aliens used advanced technology, but they also relied heavily on networked computers for coordination. Taeyang's virus would spread through their communication network and cause cascading failures. Dr. Mina reviewed his work, checking the code against what they knew of Vrecon systems. She had shifted from pure science to practical warfare, applying her xenobiology knowledge to find weaknesses. Together, they discovered something important. The Vrecon were overconfident. Their empire had conquered dozens of species, so they never developed strong cybersecurity. Why would they? No conquered species had ever successfully hacked their systems. Humanity became the first. A new pilot joined the fight, Commander Boram, leading the Wraith Squadron. She was fearless to the point of recklessness, taking her small fighter craft into situations that should have been suicide missions. While capital ships battled in orbit, Boram led raids on Vrecon supply convoys. Her squadron would appear from nowhere, destroy fuel tankers or ammunition ships, and vanish before enemy escorts could respond. The Vrecon didn't understand this type of warfare. In their experience, wars were won through direct military confrontation. Fleets met fleets. The stronger force won. They had never fought an enemy that refused to play by those rules. Human attacks came from unexpected directions using unconventional weapons, targeting non-combat vessels. It was dishonorable, it was underhanded, it was working. War Master Kryn reviewed battle reports from his flagship. The numbers confused him. His forces had destroyed over 100 human ships. By all military calculations, humanity should be broken. Instead, human attacks were increasing. They showed no sign of surrender. Moreover, his supply lines were being disrupted. Ships needed fuel. Weapons needed ammunition. His logistics officers reported shortages. This primitive species was making his empire bleed resources. 3 weeks into the invasion, Engineer Taeyang completed his virus. Dr. Mina helped him test it on captured Vrecon computer components. The virus performed perfectly, spreading through networked systems and causing exactly the failures they predicted. Now they just needed to introduce it into the Vrecon fleet. That required getting close to enemy ships, close enough to transmit the virus through short-range communication. Captain Jiho volunteered the Horizon for the mission. His ship had suffered damage but remained operational. He would lead a strike force toward the Vrecon staging area near Mars, pretend to be disabled, and transmit the virus when enemy ships came to investigate. It was dangerous, probably suicidal. Jiho didn't care. Humanity needed this advantage. The plan worked better than anyone hoped. The Horizon limped toward Mars, broadcasting fake distress signals. 6 Vrakon ships approached to finish off what they assumed was a crippled vessel. When they came within range, Taiyang activated the transmission. The virus spread like wildfire through Vrakon systems. Shields failed. Weapons went offline. Life support fluctuated. Navigation computers crashed. Jiho didn't waste the opportunity. His battle group, hidden behind Mars, emerged at full speed. They tore into the disabled Vrakon ships with everything they had. For the first time since the war began, humanity had a fair fight. And in a fair fight, human desperation and fury proved decisive. All 6 Vrakon vessels were destroyed. Not a single human ship was lost. News of the victory spread across human space instantly. People who had lived in fear for weeks suddenly felt hope. Humanity could win battles against the Vrakon. The aliens weren't invincible. General Daiho ordered immediate mass production of the virus and distribution to every combat vessel. Within days, human forces were deploying it across multiple battlefields. The Vrakon Empire reeled. War Master Kryn convened his senior commanders. Battle reports from 13 systems all told the same story. Human forces were using some kind of cyber weapon that disabled Vrakon ships. Entire battle groups had been destroyed. The humans weren't just resisting anymore, they were winning engagements. This wasn't how wars against primitive species were supposed to go. Kryn made a fateful decision. If humanity refused to surrender through overwhelming force, he would use terror. The Vrakon Empire had weapons designed to destroy entire planets, weapons they deployed only against species that proved exceptionally troublesome. Humanity had earned that designation. Kryn ordered planetary bombardment of Earth, Mars, and New Sol. Billions of humans would die, but the remainder would finally understand the futility of resistance. General Daiho received intelligence about the planned bombardment. They had perhaps 72 hours before Vrakon planet-killer weapons reached firing positions. Not enough time to evacuate billions of people. Not enough time to destroy the bombardment fleet. He called an emergency meeting with Ambassador Hyun, Captain Jiho, Dr. Mina, and his senior staff. The question was simple. How do you save humanity? When extinction is 3 days away? The answer came from an unexpected source. Engineer Taiyang proposed something insane. Weaponize humanity's entire orbital infrastructure. Earth had dozens of massive space stations, orbital platforms, and satellites. If they rigged all of them to overload their reactors simultaneously, when Vrakon ships came within range, the explosions would create a devastating blast. It would destroy most of Earth's orbital assets, but it might also cripple or destroy the bombardment fleet. It was desperate. It was destructive. It was the only option they had. Daiho approved the plan immediately. Engineers began working around the clock, converting peaceful space stations into gigantic bombs. Meanwhile, Ambassador Hyun coordinated evacuation of as many people as possible from major cities. If the plan failed, at least some humans might survive in rural areas or underground bunkers. The Vrakon bombardment fleet arrived exactly on schedule. Massive warships carrying weapons that could turn continents to ash. They moved into firing positions around Earth, preparing to demonstrate the cost of defying the Empire. Aboard his flagship, War Master Kryn watched the deployment with satisfaction. After this, humanity would beg for mercy. Then Earth's orbital stations exploded. The combined detonation of 47 reactor cores created a blast wave that engulfed the Vrakon fleet. Shields overloaded, hulls buckled, smaller vessels vaporized instantly. Even the largest warships suffered catastrophic damage. The bombardment fleet, pride of the Vrakon Empire, was devastated in seconds. Humanity had turned Earth's own infrastructure into a weapon, and it proved devastatingly effective. Across Vrakon space, news of the disaster spread. An entire fleet dest Earth's orbital infrastructure was gone. 47 space stations built over decades, reduced to debris in a single desperate gamble. But the gamble worked. The Vrakon bombardment fleet lay in ruins, their planet-killer weapons destroyed before they could fire. General Daiho stood in the command center, looking at the damage reports. Humanity paid a terrible price, but they were still alive. And alive meant they could keep fighting. The destruction of the bombardment fleet sent shockwaves through the Vrakon Empire. Their High Council convened for the first time since the invasion began. The reports they received contradicted everything they knew about warfare. Humanity was supposed to be primitive. Their technology was generations behind Vracon science, yet they had destroyed multiple battle groups, disrupted supply lines, and now eliminated an entire fleet. Something was terribly wrong. Dr. Mina worked day and night analyzing captured Vracon technology. She had access to debris from destroyed ships, computer systems, even biological samples from dead aliens. Her team discovered something fascinating. The Vracon were physically tough and technologically advanced, but they had never developed biological warfare. Their homeworld apparently had very few diseases. They conquered other species through superior technology, not through understanding biology. This discovery led to a controversial proposal. Mina believed she could engineer a pathogen that specifically targeted Vracon physiology. It wouldn't harm other species, just them. The pathogen would spread quickly through their ventilation systems, weakening the aliens without killing them immediately. It was biological warfare, something humanity had banned centuries ago. But these weren't normal circumstances. The proposal sparked intense debate. Ambassador Hyun argued passionately against it. Using biological weapons would make humanity no better than the Vracon. They would cross a moral line that couldn't be uncrossed. General Daeho countered that morality was a luxury for species that weren't facing extinction. Survival came first. Ethics could be debated later if there was a later. Captain Jiho offered a compromise. Develop the weapon but don't deploy it. Keep it as a deterrent, a threat that might force the Vracon to negotiate. If the aliens knew humanity possessed such a weapon, they might reconsider invasion. After hours of heated discussion, the United Terran Assembly voted narrowly to approve development but not deployment. Dr. Mina would create the pathogen, but it would remain locked in containment unless absolutely necessary. While this debate raged, Intelligence Officer Kwan was making discoveries of his own. He had managed to infiltrate Vracon communication networks using modified versions of Engineer Taeyang's virus. What he found was both encouraging and terrifying. The Vracon Empire was much larger than humanity imagined, controlling hundreds of worlds across vast distances. But Kwan also discovered something else. The Empire had enemies. Other species conquered by the Vracon years or decades ago still remembered freedom. They lived under alien rule, working in Vracon factories and farms, but they hadn't forgotten their own civilizations. Some of these species were secretly helping humanity, feeding intelligence through hidden channels, hoping human resistance might inspire their own rebellions. Humanity wasn't fighting alone. They had become a symbol of defiance across the galaxy. Ambassador Hyun immediately saw the opportunity. She began reaching out to these conquered species through encrypted communications. 3 species responded positively. The Thalen, aquatic beings who controlled important trade routes. The Core, a hive mind species with advanced shielding technology. And the Nyx, former warriors who still remembered how to fight. These species couldn't openly rebel without risking annihilation, but they could provide covert support. The Thalen shared intelligence about Vracon fleet movements and supply schedules. The Core provided technical specifications for shield generators far superior to anything humanity possessed. The Nyx offered something different: knowledge. They taught human soldiers ancient combat techniques developed over thousands of years of warfare. They shared tactical wisdom about fighting larger, stronger enemies. This information proved invaluable. General Daeho used this intelligence to launch humanity's first major counteroffensive. For months, humans had fought defensively, trying to survive. Now they would attack. He planned simultaneous strikes across 3 star systems, hitting Vracon staging areas, supply depots, and shipyards. The goal wasn't to win territories, but to prove humanity could strike anywhere. Anytime. Commander Borum led the first strike, taking her Wraith Squadron deep into Vracon-controlled space to destroy a fuel depot. The depot supplied dozens of warships. Without fuel, those ships couldn't operate. Borum's fighters came in fast and low, avoiding detection until the last moment. They launched every missile they had, then fled before Vracon defenders could respond. The depot exploded spectacularly, taking 17 supply ships with it. Simultaneously, Engineer Taeyang deployed his latest weapon, nanite swarms. These microscopic machines could eat through Vracon hull armor like rust-consuming metal. He released clouds of nanites near a major shipyard. The tiny machines spread across dozens of vessels under construction, corrupting their hulls and making them structurally unsound. The Vracon wouldn't discover the damage until ships failed catastrophically during combat. Admiral Sora, commanding humanity's deep space fleet, struck the third target, a Vracon command ship coordinating operations across 5 systems. Her battle group emerged from hyperspace directly on top of the massive vessel, firing everything before the aliens could raise shields. The command ship survived but suffered severe damage. More importantly, its destruction disrupted Vracon coordination across multiple battlefields. The coordinated attacks shocked the Vracon Empire. Humanity was supposed to be on the defensive, fighting for survival. Instead, they launched offensive operations deep in Vracon territory. How did primitive humans strike so effectively? The answer was intelligence from conquered species, but the Vracon didn't know that yet. They only knew their empire was bleeding from 1,000 cuts. War Master Kryn realized he had catastrophically underestimated humanity. This wasn't a primitive species. This was a dangerous enemy that adapted quickly, fought without honor, and refused to accept defeat. He sent urgent requests to the Vracon High Council. He needed more ships, more soldiers, more resources. Most importantly, he needed the Extinction Fleet. The Extinction Fleet was the Vracon Empire's ultimate weapon. 500 massive warships, each carrying enough firepower to destroy entire worlds. The fleet had been deployed only 5 times in Vracon history, against species that proved exceptionally resistant to conquest. Each time the result was the same: total annihilation. The High Council authorized deployment with one condition: Kryn had 3 months to prepare. The fleet needed that time to reach human space. Intelligence Officer Quan intercepted the transmission about the Extinction Fleet. He immediately reported to General Daeho. 3 months. Humanity had 3 months to prepare for an armada designed to exterminate them completely. The general called an emergency meeting with all senior commanders. This was it. The final battle. Either humanity found a way to defeat 500 warships, or they faced extinction. Dr. Mina presented her completed bioweapon. It was ready for deployment if needed. The pathogen could spread through Vracon ships in hours, weakening the aliens and disrupting their combat effectiveness. But using it meant crossing that moral line. Ambassador Hyun still opposed deployment. General Daeho argued they might have no choice. Captain Jiho suggested keeping it as a last resort. The assembly voted to maintain the weapon in sealed containment, to be deployed only if humanity faced certain extinction. Meanwhile, Ambassador Hyun worked to strengthen the secret alliance with conquered species. She sent a message to the Thalen Corps and Nyx. The Extinction Fleet was coming. If it destroyed humanity, these species would never have another chance at freedom. The Vracon would tighten their control, terrified of future rebellions. But if humanity could bloody the Extinction Fleet, if they could prove even the Empire's ultimate weapon was vulnerable, it might inspire galaxy-wide uprising. The response came quickly. All 3 species pledged support. The Thalen would provide ships claiming they were for trade but actually armed for combat. The Corps would share their most advanced shield technology, even though this violated Vracon law. The Nyx would send their finest warriors as advisors. These species were risking everything on humanity's chances. If humans lost, the Vracon would punish them severely. Engineer Taeyang worked on his most ambitious project yet, a weapon that could destabilize a star. If humanity faced certain defeat, they could turn entire star systems into supernovas. The Vracon could destroy human worlds, but humanity would take Vracon territory with them. It was mutually assured destruction on a galactic scale. The weapon was insane, suicidal, and potentially humanity's only leverage against impossible odds. General Daeho implemented total mobilization. Every human capable of fighting joined the war effort. Factories ran 24 hours producing weapons and ships. Scientists worked on new technologies. Citizens prepared for the worst while hoping for the best. Humanity had 3 months to get ready. 3 months. The countdown began. 3 months until the Extinction Fleet arrived. 90 days to prepare for the most one-sided battle in human history. General Daeho converted the entire human economy into a war machine. Civilian factories started producing military hardware. Mining operations focused on materials needed for weapons and ships. Even schools taught combat skills alongside regular subjects. Every human became part of the war effort. Captain Jiho worked with Admiral Sora, planning defensive strategies. They couldn't win a direct confrontation against 500 warships. Traditional tactics would result in total defeat within hours. They needed something different, something the Vrakon wouldn't expect. The Nyx warriors provided insights into unconventional warfare, tactics they used when fighting stronger enemies. The key was never giving the enemy the battle they wanted. The Corps delivered their shield technology. Engineer Taeyang and his team studied it intensely, working to adapt it to human ships. The Corps shields could withstand significantly more damage than human versions, but they required enormous power. Human reactors weren't designed for such energy demands. Taeyang modified the designs, creating shields that wouldn't last long but could briefly protect ships from planet-killer weapons. Brief protection was better than none. Meanwhile, the Thaylen provided detailed intelligence about Vrakon supply chains. The Extinction fleet was massive, requiring enormous amounts of fuel, ammunition, and supplies. The Thaylen identified the main supply convoy that would follow the fleet. Destroying that convoy wouldn't stop the Extinction fleet, but it would limit how long they could fight. A long battle favored humanity because every minute was another chance for something to go wrong for the Vrakon. Diplomat Yuna, Ambassador Hyun's protege, worked to coordinate the growing alliance. More conquered species were reaching out, offering small bits of help. They couldn't send ships or soldiers without the Vrakon noticing, but they provided intelligence, sabotaged Vrakon facilities, and spread dissent within the Empire. Each small action helped. Together, these species were creating chaos throughout Vrakon territory. On New Sol, humanity's largest remaining colony, the situation grew desperate. Vrakon occupation forces landed 2 months before the Extinction fleet's arrival. They wanted to secure the planet as a staging area. Soldier Minho commanded the defense, leading 20,000 troops against over 100,000 Vrakon soldiers. The odds were impossible. Minho decided to make the aliens pay for every street. New Sol became a nightmare for the Vrakon. Human defenders turned the city into a maze of death. Every building was rigged with explosives. Every intersection became a kill zone. Snipers picked off Vrakon officers from hidden positions. Underground tunnels allowed humans to appear and disappear like ghosts. The aliens had superior numbers and technology, but they were fighting on humanity's terms in humanity's city. The siege dragged on for weeks. The Vrakon captured territory block by block, but each block cost them hundreds of soldiers. Their commanders grew frustrated. This was supposed to be a simple occupation. Instead, it became a brutal urban war that consumed resources and troops. Warmaster Kryn received reports about the catastrophic casualties. He ordered his forces to level the city completely. If humans wouldn't surrender it, he would destroy it. Minho knew the city was lost. Orbital bombardment would flatten New Sol within hours. He ordered evacuation of all remaining civilians, sending them through underground tunnels to evacuation points outside the city. His soldiers would stay behind, buying time. When the bombardment began, Minho and his troops were still fighting, still making the Vrakon bleed. They died defending an empty city, but they died taking hundreds of aliens with them. News of New Sol's fall spread across human space. People mourned the loss of a beautiful city and brave defenders, but they also felt pride. Soldier Minho and his troops had shown that humans would fight to the last breath. Their sacrifice bought time for civilians to escape and demonstrated to the entire galaxy that humanity valued life enough to defend it at any cost. Engineer Taeyang completed his Starkiller weapon. It was elegant in its simplicity and terrifying in its implications. A single device could destabilize a star's fusion cycle, causing it to go supernova. Any planet in the system would be destroyed. Any ship would be vaporized. It was the ultimate deterrent because using it meant mutual destruction. If the Extinction fleet destroyed humanity, they would lose entire star systems in revenge. General Daiho looked at the weapon with mixed feelings. It represented everything desperate about humanity's situation. They were preparing weapons that would destroy their own territories just to hurt the enemy. But he also recognized its value. The Vrakon Empire needed to know that defeating humanity would cost them dearly. Sometimes the threat of catastrophic revenge was enough to prevent attack in the first place. The Vrakon High Council received intelligence about humanity's preparations. They learned about the biological weapon, the Star Killers, the alliance with conquered species. Some council members advocated withdrawal, Perhaps humanity wasn't worth the cost. Other members demanded total extermination. Any species this dangerous had to be eliminated completely. The debate within the Empire grew heated. War Master Kryn argued passionately for using the Extinction fleet. The Empire's reputation was at stake. 43 species had surrendered. If humanity resisted successfully, other conquered species might rebel. The Empire would fracture. Better to exterminate humans as an example, show the galaxy what happened to species that defied the Vrakon. Fear would maintain order where force alone had failed. Intelligence Officer Quan listened to intercepted Vrakon communications, trying to gauge the Empire's intentions. What he heard worried him. The Vrakon were committed to the attack. The Extinction fleet would arrive as planned. But he also detected something else, doubt. Many Vrakon questioned whether conquering humanity was worth the casualties they had already suffered. The Empire's unity was cracking. Ambassador Hyun seized this opportunity. She composed a message and transmitted it across Vrakon space in their own language. The message was simple. Humanity didn't want war. They wanted to live in peace, but if the Vrakon forced them to fight, humanity would ensure the cost was unbearable. They had weapons that could destroy stars. They had alliances with other species. They had nothing left to lose. Negotiate now, or face consequences that would haunt the Empire for generations. The message created uproar within the Vrakon Empire. A primitive species threatening them? Demanding negotiation? It was outrageous. But it was also effective. Common Vrakon citizens who bore the cost of war through taxes and casualties began questioning the invasion. Why were they fighting humans so fiercely? Couldn't the Empire find resources elsewhere? Did they really need another conquered species? As the 3-month deadline approached, humanity made final preparations. Dr. Mina secured the bioweapon and reinforced containment, praying it would never be deployed. Engineer Taeyang distributed Starkiller devices to strategic locations throughout human space. Captain Jiho coordinated with Admiral Sora, positioning their combined fleet for the coming battle. Every ship, every weapon, every soldier stood ready. The allied species sent what support they could. The Thalen diverted trade ships to human space, vessels secretly armed with weapons. The Corps transmitted shield upgrades to every human vessel. The Nick sent messages of encouragement and tactical advice. These species couldn't fight openly alongside humanity, but they were present in spirit and material support. On the final day before the Extinction fleet's arrival, General Daeho addressed all of humanity through a live broadcast. He spoke of the journey from the first attack to this moment. He honored those who died defending humanity. He praised the ingenuity and determination that got them this far. Then he made a promise. Whatever happened tomorrow, humanity would not go quietly into extinction. If they fell, the galaxy would remember that humans fought until the very end. Across human space, people watched the broadcast. Parents held children. Soldiers checked weapons. Scientists ran final calculations. Everyone knew what was coming. The Extinction fleet would arrive at dawn. 500 warships designed to exterminate them completely. The odds were impossible. But humanity had survived impossible odds before through determination and creativity. They would try to survive them again. Captain Jiho stood on the bridge of the horizon looking at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Extinction fleet was approaching. Tomorrow would bring the battle that decided humanity's fate. He thought about his crew, good people who volunteered to fight against impossible odds. He thought about his family on Earth, hoping they survived whatever came next. Then he cleared his mind and focused on the job ahead. The sensors detected them first. Hyperspace signatures, hundreds of them, appearing at the edge of human space. The Extinction fleet had arrived exactly on schedule. 500 massive warships, each one a city-sized engine of destruction. They assembled in perfect formation, blocking out stars with their sheer mass. The fleet began its slow advance toward Earth, Mars, and the remaining human colonies. War Master Kryn stood on the bridge of the fleet's flagship, surveying the tactical displays. Before him lay human space, 13 systems that had resisted for months. That resistance ended today. The Extinction fleet filled the darkness of space like a plague of metal locusts. 500 warships advanced in perfect formation toward human territories. Each vessel carried enough weapons to destroy a city. Together, they represented the full might of an empire that had conquered 43 species. War Master Kryn watched from his flagship's bridge. confident this would be the quickest extermination campaign in Vracon history. Captain Jiho's fleet waited at the edge of the Kepler Nebula, using the dense gas clouds for concealment. 200 human ships alongside 50 vessels provided by the Thalen. Against 500 Vracon warships, the numbers were hopeless. But Jiho hadn't chosen this battlefield for a fair fight. The nebula would interfere with Vracon sensors and targeting systems. It would turn technological superiority into a liability. The Extinction fleet entered the nebula cautiously. Their sensors showed human ships scattered throughout the gas clouds but couldn't get precise targeting locks. Kryn ordered his forces to spread out and hunt down the humans. It was exactly what Jiho wanted. The moment the Vracon formation broke apart, humanity attacked from every direction simultaneously. Human ships emerged from the gas clouds at point-blank range, firing everything they had. Modified core shields briefly protected them from return fire. The attacks were suicidal but effective, overwhelming Vracon defenses through sheer audacity. 3 Vracon ships exploded in the first minute. Then 7 more. The aliens scrambled to respond, but the nebula turned their organized formations into chaos. Commander Borum led a squadron of fighters directly into the Extinction fleet's flagship, weaving through defensive fire with reckless skill. Her pilots launched every missile they carried at the massive vessel's bridge, then crashed their fighters into critical systems. Borum's last transmission was a war cry as her ship impacted the flagship's main reactor. The explosion crippled the command vessel and killed Warmaster Kryn instantly. The death of their Warmaster threw the Vracon into confusion. The Extinction fleet had fought 5 campaigns across their history, always under clear command. Now their leader was gone, and they were being attacked by tactics they had never encountered. Human ships refused to fight fairly, appearing from gas clouds to strike and vanish. It was dishonorable. It was frustrating. It was working. Admiral Sora commanded the second wave of attacks, targeting the Vracon supply convoy that followed the main fleet. The Thalen had provided exact coordinates. Sora's ships destroyed fuel tankers and ammunition carriers, creating massive explosions that consumed additional vessels. The Extinction fleet could still fight, but without resupply, their combat effectiveness would decrease steadily. Just when the Vracon began adapting to human tactics, the allied species made their move. Thalen ships that had pretended to be neutral traders suddenly revealed hidden weapons and attacked Vracon vessels from behind. Core saboteurs activated programs that disrupted shield harmonics across the fleet. Nyx warriors who had infiltrated Vracon-occupied worlds launched coordinated uprisings, forcing the Empire to divert forces from the battle. The Vracon Empire suddenly faced not one enemy, but multiple species acting in concert. This had never happened before. Conquered species stayed conquered through fear and overwhelming force. But humanity's resistance had inspired something the Vracon didn't understand: hope. Other species saw that the Empire could bleed, could lose, could be defied. That hope became action. The battle raged for 12 hours. Human losses were catastrophic. Half of Jiho's fleet was destroyed. The Thalen lost nearly all their ships. Thousands of human pilots and soldiers died. But the Extinction fleet suffered too. Over 100 warships were destroyed or disabled. Their supply lines were cut. Their leadership was dead, and for the first time in 2,000 years. The Vracon Empire faced organized resistance across multiple systems. The new Vracon commander, Admiral Vex, looked at the tactical situation and felt something alien to his species: doubt. The Extinction fleet was supposed to annihilate resistance in days. Instead, they were bogged down in a grinding battle against enemies that refused to die. Worse, reports came in of uprisings across the Empire. The Nyx had reclaimed 3 worlds. The core shut down major production facilities. This invasion was destabilizing everything. General Deho watched the battle from Earth's command center. The costs were terrible, but humanity was surviving. The Extinction fleet, while still powerful, was no longer unstoppable. He made a calculated decision. It was time to show the Vracon humanity's final weapons. He ordered Engineer Taeyang to activate the Starkiller devices, making them visible to Vracon sensors but not actually deploying them. Let the enemy see what would happen if they continued. Admiral Vex received reports of unusual energy signatures throughout human space. His science officers analyzed them and reported with alarm. The humans had positioned devices capable of causing supernovas. Multiple star systems held these weapons. If deployed, they would destroy vast regions of space, including any Vracon forces present. The implications were staggering. Humanity was prepared for mutual annihilation on a scale that would devastate both civilizations. Captain Jiho opened a direct communication channel to the Vrakon fleet. His image appeared on every enemy ship's display. He looked tired, covered in soot from damaged systems, but his voice was steady. He showed the Vrakon the Starkiller weapons, the biological pathogen ready for deployment, and the fleets of rebellious species gathering throughout the Empire. Then he delivered humanity's ultimatum: withdraw immediately, release all conquered species, establish non-aggression treaties, or humanity would activate every weapon they possessed. The Vrakon could probably destroy Earth and Mars, but they would lose dozens of star systems in the process. Their empire would fracture as conquered species rebelled. They would win a Pyrrhic victory that cost them everything they had built over 2,000 years. For the first time in their history, the Vrakon faced an impossible choice. They could win this war through overwhelming force, but the cost would be catastrophic. Or they could negotiate with a species they had intended to conquer. Pride demanded they fight. Pragmatism suggested withdrawal. Admiral Vex contacted the High Council, requesting emergency instructions. The Vrakon High Council convened in chaos. Reports flooded in from across the Empire. Multiple species were rebelling. Production was down. Military resources were stretched thin. The Extinction fleet, supposedly invincible, had lost over 100 ships and couldn't guarantee victory. Some council members still demanded total war. Others advocated negotiation. The debate raged for hours while both fleets maintained uneasy positions. Ambassador Hyun monitored the Vrakon communications, waiting for any sign of their decision. She knew humanity couldn't sustain this stalemate long. Human forces were exhausted, supplies were running low, and morale depended on hope that the Vrakon would back down. If the aliens called humanity's bluff and resumed fighting, the Starkillers would have to be deployed. That meant mutual destruction. Dr. Mina stood in her laboratory, hand hovering over the bioweapon release controls. If the order came, she would deploy the pathogen throughout Vrakon ships. It would weaken them, maybe win the battle. But it would also mean humanity embraced biological warfare, a line they swore never to cross. She prayed the Vrakon would choose peace. Not for their sake, but for humanity's soul. After 6 tense hours, the Vrakon High Council reached a decision. Admiral Vex received his orders and transmitted them to Captain Jiho. The Vrakon Empire agreed to negotiate. They would withdraw forces from human territory immediately. They would discuss terms for release of conquered species. They would establish non-aggression treaties. This was not surrender, the message emphasized, but pragmatic recognition that continuing the war would damage both civilizations beyond repair. Across human space, people watched the Extinction fleet begin its withdrawal. They couldn't believe it. The impossible had happened. Humanity faced certain annihilation and survived through determination, creativity, and absolute refusal to submit. They had proven that technological superiority didn't guarantee victory. Will and unity could overcome overwhelming odds. Captain Jiho slumped in his command chair, exhausted beyond measure. His crew cheered around him, celebrating the reprieve. But Jiho felt no joy, only relief and grief. They had survived, but the cost was enormous. Commander Borum was dead. Thousands of pilots and soldiers were gone. Cities lay in ruins. The war was ending, but humanity would carry its scars for generations. General Daiho authorized stand-down orders to all military forces while keeping weapons active as insurance. The Vrakon agreed to negotiate, but trust would take time to build. Engineer Taeyang deactivated the Starkiller devices but kept them ready. Dr. Mina sealed the bioweapon, relieved it would never be deployed. Ambassador Hyun prepared for the most important negotiation in human history. Throughout the Vrakon Empire, conquered species watched the news with amazement. Humanity had done what seemed impossible. They forced the Empire to negotiate. The Nix intensified their uprising. The Corps demanded independence. The Thaylen closed trade routes until their freedom was guaranteed. The empire that ruled through fear sudden,